Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, good morning, good evening, good afternoon. Welcome back to another video on Modern Warships. I'm the Unknown, and today I'm going to, I guess you can call this a tutorial. I'm gonna show you guys how to properly use the Zumwalt and what build should be on the Zumwalt. Now, this might be a controversial video because a lot of, we'll just get into it. So the USS Zumwalt, much like the Lyndon B. Johnson, which is basically the better version of it, is a sniping warship. Now, as somebody who has used the Zumwalt since September 7th, 2021, yes, I kept track as that was the day I purchased the Zumwalt for the first time. So I have over 4 years of experience, using this warship, almost 5 years. So trust me when I say that the Zumwalt is only meant for sniping. This is a far-range stealth sniping warship. I say far range because it is stealth. If you're farther range, if you're not spotted, you're pretty much golden. So, with that said, I'm going to go over some tactics and some builds that you can use on your Zumwalt, and the only build you should ever use on the Zumwalt, or builds, excuse me. There's two builds you can use. So, the first build is going to be pretty much your standard, beginner level Zumwalt build. And don't just ignore the build that I have. I'm going to be speaking generally. So, in the 3x slot, you're always going to want to use a laser guided missile. What does this mean? Any missile that you manually control yourself. So, there are plenty of missiles to choose from, but if you're free to play, there are very limited options. The first option is going to be none other than the X-51 Wave Rider, and the second option is going to be the HVGP Block 1. Both of which are very good. However, if I had to choose one, I would choose the HVGP Block 1 simply because it has better durability. So yeah. And for the pay-to-win community out there, there is also two options. Option number one is the regular High-Fly 2, and option number two is the High-Fly Nuke. Now, naturally, I'm going to go for the High-Fly Nuke because a laser-guided nuke missile is just toxic, and I'm all for being toxic. So, yeah. For the 2x slot, you're always going to need an anti-air missile. There's no debating it. An anti-air missile. Now, what anti-air missiles do we have? Well, for the free-to-play community, once again, we have the RIM 174. Other anti-air missiles are as follows, but not limited to the HSTDV, which is a free-to-play gacha anti-air missile. We have the we have the Still 1, which is a brand new anti-air missile that was added to the game. One of the best ones in the game ever is the Vityaz for its acceleration and AA penetration, because it's not only used for anti-air, but it's also used for AA penetration. Next is the S500 Prometheus, and we also have the HQ-26. I don't know if I mentioned it, but yes, we have the HQ-26 as well, all of which are viable options. Now, those are for relatively free to play. Now, if you're pay to win, correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, but I believe there's only really one option, and that is the Thetian missile. It is anti-air. It does a lot of damage, but its reload isn't exactly the best. So the top two best anti-air missiles I would go for are going to be Vityaz and HQ-26. Or the Still 1 is also a really good one. All right, now for the cannons. Now, this is very controversial because a lot of people don't know what cannons to use. And so there's going to be quite a few missiles I'm going to choose from. So, again, the Zumwalt is a sniping warship. So I'm going to list some of the best cannons you can possibly use, starting with the free-to-play side. So, for the free-to-play community, we have the Monarch. There's literally no debating it. If you're not using Monarch on the Zumwalt as a free-to-play player, you're wrong. There is no debate. There is no argument. Next is the A200 Navigator. Also a really good option. It doesn't have the shortest reload, but it makes up for it in the amount of damage it does. It has been used quite a bit in tournaments. Next, for the pay-to-win side, we have the Mark 71. We have the Emerge Koenig. We have the Archer. We have the L52, which is another really good choice. I've seen people use, the Densho and the Tensho. No, these are not the best options because, plasma railguns aren't the best. I don't care what anybody says. And we do have the SH-16, which is another good choice. And another one of the best choices out there is going to be the Primetron. Literally no debating it. In tournaments recently, I have used the Primetron, not on the Zumwalt, but on the Hang Zhao because of its insane accuracy. Its one-round burst and its AoE is just out of this world. It also has a low trajectory, and it is the fastest cannon in the game. All right, for helicopters, for the free-to-play community, all right, we have a few options out there. We have the Panspatial Dragon Wing for its anti-decoy, anti-air missiles. We have the Fennis, which is it's probably the best free-to-play helicopter in the game. The Fennis is it's out of this world. It's not only good for damage and, range abusing, but it's good for anti-air and also defense as well. Another really good option for the Zumwalt is going to have to be the Sea Comanche. This is also one of the best helicopters to use. If I had to choose two helicopters to ever use on the Zumwalt, it would be the Sea Comanche or the Fennis. All right. Moving on to the autocannons. There is only 2 autocannons you should ever use on the Zumwalt as an OG and as a really skilled player. That is the Seahawk Sigma, and if you're not using the Seahawk Sigma and you're going against ships that have a lot of torpedoes, you're going to want to use the AFGS. There is no debating it. These are the only 2 autocannons you should ever use on the Zumwalt. Now, for an air defense, you're going to strictly run a laser air defense. Now, for overall gameplay, and if you're a hero, the Ansec is probably going to be one of the best options. However, if you're not a hero and you're doing this for tournaments, there are only ever 2 options for this. The first one is going to be the HPLS, probably the best option out of the 2. The second one is going to be the Alka. Again, mostly because most of the Zumwalt players you're going to go against in tournaments are going to be using laser-guided missiles. So a laser air defense plus Seahawk Sigma is going to be your best air defense combo in the game. Now, the Zumwalt is nothing without a skin, and there is only ever one skin you should ever use on the Zumwalt, and that is the Tesla skin. No questions asked. It is the Tesla skin. If you're a cultured Zumwalt player, you already know that the Tesla skin is pretty much mandatory on the Zumwalt. Now, I'm going to go ahead and go over some do's and don'ts. Again, the Zumwalt is a far-range sniping ship, so treat it as such. The ship is not a camp behind the rock and spam missiles. A lot of noobs are going to see this and they're going to be like, oh my god, the ship has 5 missiles. Let me put the most spammiest missiles on here and camp behind a rock. No, that is not what you're supposed to do. That's not what the Zumwalt is. The Zumwalt is not a missile spammer. The Zumwalt is not a brawler. It is strictly a sniper. Now, with that said, you notice that there are 2 cannons on the front of the ship. That is perfect for peeking. You're not exposing the entire ship. You're only exposing about, a third or about half of it, which is all right. And also, if you noticed, the very first missile slot is in the very front of the ship, which is why this is a very good peeking ship as well. On maps like Old Factory, as an example, or Viking Bay, not Viking Bay, Hidden Dragon. Maps with a lot of cover, or very open maps with cover, it's pretty much perfect for this role. It's good for peeking and sniping. Now, again, what you shouldn't do is close range brawl with the Zumwalt, and you shouldn't camp behind a rock and spam missiles. That's pretty much the only way you should ever use a Zumwalt. Any other way is wrong and is pretty much frowned upon. As a cultured Zumwalt player, as someone who has used it for over 4 years, this is the way to use the Zumwalt. Comment down below if this video has helped any of you guys, especially the old players. Comment down below if you agree with me. Oh yeah, I will say, So the second build you could use on this is you can do a full laser guided setup. Now, this is only pretty much reserved for the most skilled individuals. And I say this because if you're using 5x51s or 5 laser guided missiles in general, typically you're going to be doing a lot of hook shots. Now, I did recently win a second tournament win because my buddy Snow was using laser guided missiles and he was absolutely hook shotting people to death. So yeah, the Zumwalt, if you're using a full laser guided setup, those are pretty much for the most skilled individuals who are consistent in hitting their hook shots. Anyways, comment down below if I did anything wrong, if I was right and you guys agree, let me know in the comments below. If this has helped you in any way, let me know if I should do more videos like this. And I will see you guys in the next video. Peace out.